I wanted to ask specifically about Bryson Washington. Is he, given his size and his speed, is he the idea of what you're looking for at safety?
I think in a lot of ways. I mean, the one thing at every position, you're looking for that size potential, speed potential. You're saying because you're evaluating guys that obviously 17, 18-year-old guys, kind of where they can go from, from high school ranks to college ranks, and some guys obviously have a higher starting point, and he's one of those guys that stands out one on film, has some track times to kind of confirm what you see on film. But that's what you're attempting to build at every position of your defense. Long athletes that can run. You never want to compromise the speed element of things. And so Bryson's one of those guys that we really think possesses both those main skill sets. He's got, you watch it practice and you're trying to find the DB and oh goodness, it almost looks like an undersized D end or something like that, just from compared to other high school guys, but certainly moves and plays the way we like him to. So we're excited about Bryson.
Ryan Aber.
Alex, I'm curious about the two JUCO defensive linemen, especially Winfrey. How much did he set the tone for that class and getting people to buy into what you were doing, and how important we're bringing those two guys in, especially where y'all stand defensively?
Well, I mean, certainly a position of need. Just as you go through, our depth chart. Through 2019 transition into 2020, that's the spot where you kind of have the most planned attrition in terms of the senior class as they move on past this, and so there's a major need obviously in that spot, and so as you look at from a junior college standpoint, you're always evaluating the best available talent. I mean, so you're not always willing to if it's regardless of position, if there's a guy that can come in and start on your defense, you're in the business of recruiting those individuals, but certainly that was just a spot. There's kind of a gap between those seniors and then some young guys that some which have played a little bit for us and some which have not. And so how do you fill that gap? And so with Perrin in particular as one of the first guys to kind of jump on board, really fills that need. But by the way, it's not just let's get a big body, plug them in there. You're talking about two talented guys that we think possess those attributes that we're looking for in defensive linemen. Not just the size element of things, but a quick first step and the ability to rush passers and that. So that was good. But really to your point, I will say this: you start recruiting these guys when you get the job in January. You sign them in December. There's about an 8-month period of time where you're telling them all the things you're going to do. And the problem is when you're in that phase and you don't have kind of the tangible evidence to say that you're going to get these things done at the University of Oklahoma, or these are the individuals that have gotten it done at the University of Oklahoma in this defense. You kind of turn yourself into everybody else. You're just chatter. You're just another coach selling your salesman. And so in any event, for some of those guys to buy into that vision when there wasn't as much tangible evidence kind of speaks to obviously the job as a coaching staff, but certainly to them as individuals in terms of understanding kind of where this thing was going. And then it's nice now kind of transition from the 2019 to 2020, which would be the 21 class, is that you got a little bit more evidence in terms of the things that you're selling.
Chris Billow.
Kind of leads to what I was going to ask. How different is the response now when you talk to 2020 but also 2021 kids compared to when you were saying these same things in spring but had nothing to show for it?
Well, and it's obviously a real positive, and you talk about a program with the stature of Oklahoma. Everyone's going to take your phone call. At least that first one. There's a good bet you're going to get them on campus. If we listed on this board, which obviously we won't and can't, but all the guys that walk through these doors, it's the who's who of student athletes in that 2020 class. And so, in any event, continue to move forward. Now that you got more tangible evidence, in some respects, a guy comes through, okay, got you, coach. But then they go to, every single kid that you recruit. Oh, by the way, he's got just about everybody else in the country that they can choose from, and if those individuals have not just, obviously the and most don't. The evidence over a long period of time, like an Oklahoma football does, but in a more immediacy of this deal in terms of the amount of NFL players. that they've produced and the results on the field. And so in any event, no, moving forward, certainly we got it, and it's the next step is for us to produce those individuals. But evidence is good. I mean, you're constantly trying to find those things that separate you between you and your competition. And we got a big time one in terms of this logo, this facility, this campus, this school. But you're trying to find that next thing, and obviously results matter.
George Doyle.
Coach, Brendan Walker, obviously an in-state kid. How big was it to get him as an in-state kid, and what do you like about him and the way he plays?
I mean, I think in a perfect world, you draw a circle around Norman, Oklahoma, and make that circle as big as you want, and try to get them within that radius, and not that you would ever limit yourself. I mean, the biggest thing about Brendan is I think he's a talented kid that can have an impact on our defense. I think he has position flexibility. Again, size standpoint, speed standpoint, guy really in that second level as you go through the Mike linebacker, will linebacker, rush linebacker positions. I think he could do any and all three of those. And so, like you said, a local guy, and you got to be right on those guys, because their experience is going to have a lot to do with kind of relationships moving forward and all those things. So you want to make sure as you go through it that let's not go out to name the state that's not Oklahoma and say, okay, let's go get him when you got a good one in state that checks those boxes. So we're excited about him.
Jeremy Mick.
Alex, you cool with an LSU question?
Sure.
While you're here, I think they piled up 500 even against Auburn yardage. Scored just 23 points, but they gained 500 yards, which clues you into the fact that I don't know if anyone's actually slowed them down, let alone stopped them. Does this game come down to make plays when you can? That they're going to move it, do what you can in the red zone, do what you can on takeaways. I know you've hit on that all year, but especially in this situation with this kind of offense.
Well, I think one, you got to be respectful of the fact that they are going to make plays, and all of a sudden they're going to take a Saturday off. And so what we have to make sure of is that we make our fair share. What's that look like? Does it look like a tackle for loss in the backfield, a possible sack, a takeaway, all those things? You can't walk into walk out of a stadium and say we didn't make plays tonight. And obviously at this on this stage with so much on the line, and certainly against such a quality opponent. But you also can't be a prisoner to the sticks. You can't be a prisoner to that first down marker and to insinuate that every possession is somehow going to be in the vicinity of 9 yards or less. They've done a tremendous job over the course of the season versus a quality schedule that would suggest that it's a very difficult offense to stop. You're talking about the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. They said Biletnikoff winner at receiver, which I immediately asked which one. And so that tells you something when there's talent across the board, talented tailback, and so in any event, you talk about a challenge of all challenges for defensive coaches and defensive players, and we'll work daily to meet that challenge.
Myron Patton.
A lot's been talked about the recruiting calendar. Of course, you guys involved in the Big 12 championship game, and there's positives out, but there's also some negatives. What can you do? Is there anything, you'll do some things different. What will you do, say, if you're in the same situation next year?
Well, I think, the way this calendar fell, with everybody having 2 bye weeks and where the Big 12 championship was, is really just allowed 1 week on the road in December. And I think what you have to do is you have to almost anticipate that as you go through the course of a calendar year is making sure that, what you are saving for December is probably an inaccurate way to kind of look at your calendar. You got to say, okay, these visits, for instance, have to take place during the course of your season, which again, you're kind of a busy time over that. The flip side is, okay, the spring, now it's available to us to bring these guys in for official visits in the spring all the way up into June. But then there's a stretch between, you bring a guy in June, he really likes your campus. Well, there's 6 months until he gets a chance to sign on the dotted line, all the different places you can go between now and then. So that poses, kind of unique challenges that way. And so, the minute I start talking about it, I kind of bring up more issues. I don't think there's a silver bullet behind it in terms of exactly how to manage it. I think the positive thing, you said, the best recruiting tool we had when the other people were on the road as we prepare for the Big 12 championship game was to win the Big 12 championship, and it's a pretty good tool. And then, as you transition forward, but what it prevents is the amount of times in living rooms. And so you really got to do a great job from a relationship standpoint before the month of December. Whereas long ago, I guess it wasn't that long ago, a few years ago, where you're in the home the first week in December, the second week in December, 3 more times in January, and you're to the point where the families are almost getting sick of seeing you. You just don't have that anymore. So in any event, I guess the moral of the story is win ball games. That's your greatest tool and selling point. But you got to make sure you do a great job relationship-wise between phone calls, FaceTimes, and all those things, and get them on campus in the months preceding December.
Tyler Palmtier.
Hey Alex, what has Marcus Stripling's development been like this year? And does he seem like somebody that you can get contributions from?
Yeah, I think his practice has steadily improved. I think he's a guy that certainly we're excited about. I think his best football's in front of him. He does have an element of speed that brings a lot to that position. The physicality that is different in college versus high school. There's always a transition anytime you're talking about guys on your defensive front, and so that's the hardest. The hardest transition is for those guys because there's just a different animal going against a 300-pound guy over and over and over again. And so that's something that he continues to work through, understand the defense, all those things. But certainly progress is being made. He's finding some time on the field and something that we'll continue to look to get more of.
We hear from coaches about players flash. Have you seen those moments from him this year? And if you remember one, would you share it?
Going back to even the Houston game, just coming off the ball, flying off the football. I think it was a play that wasn't necessarily made in the backfield, but you just saw that snap off the ball, and you see that again, probably more in practice right now than what we've seen in games. But and so much of that too ties in just sort of the trust standpoint is making sure that guys are number one where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there, combined with the speed out of what play he could be making. There's a good chance he's not going to make that play if he's not where he's supposed to be. And so in any event, he is steadily improving, the guy that we're awfully excited about.
Eric Bailey.
Alex, what's it like having 3 weeks to prepare for an opponent after going to the week-to-week grind? And then also, does Joe Burrow remind you of any type of quarterback that you've coached against over the years?
Yeah, because going back to the recruiting element of things, really up to the Big 12 championship, it was on the road recruiting for the week. I mean, you're gone. I mean, you didn't get a chance to come back even to the building. It's hit the road for all those things we mentioned. You got to get home that night and you got to roll. And so, that week, not to describe it as a wash from a preparation standpoint, certainly our players are in here watching film and all those things with Coach White on the weight room. And so you steal some time that way. But just in terms of a true prep week, it's kind of comes and goes because of the recruiting element of things, which then turns this week into, in a lot of ways, just the way the calendar falls. It's kind of like the bye week sequence. So as we got back in the building this past weekend, is okay. Now, do you treat it fully like a bye week? How do you prepare that way? So it's a unique calendar that way, and it doesn't allow you, kind of that sigh of relief after, normally after a signing day, you kind of take a breather. Maybe for an evening, and we obviously don't have that, with the stakes so high, and so challenged that way. With Joe, I happened to be at Ohio State last spring he was at Ohio State, and so I know Joe, and talented guy, and saw that firsthand, and the ability to move the pocket, extend plays, to throw on the run, and in those. With those attributes, what ends up happening, you imagine being an offense coordinator, the confidence that you have that you can't call a bad play. And then all of a sudden it can get real scary, and it has in terms of for defenses. And so, I think about Sam Darnold in years past, and I'm certainly Joe Flacco years and years ago were guys that, you saw on film, and it doesn't take a whole lot of many clips where you just kind of get wowed by them. So no, he's certainly in that category, elite.
Okay, we got time for one more. Brandon Drum.
Yeah. Can you talk about Brendan Walker a little bit and just how versatile he is? Because he's an inside type of guy.
And that's the term I would use. Just being versatile that way. Having the ability to do a number of things on our defense. He already possesses a size aspect of things that for his age, is something that we envision being kind of a separator, kind of as he comes on campus in that 6'3" range, and already in that 240-pound range, and moves well. And so, no, those are the type of guys that in a lot of ways you can't have enough of, because they can do so much for you in your defense.